69, I was 21, and I called the road my own. You don't spit into the wind, you don't pull the mask off old Lone Ranger, and you don't it always seem to go? You don't know what you've got till it's gone.
The end of the singer-songwriter rock era, which was a phenomenon that flourished primarily in the 1960s and 70s, can be attributed to a combination of musical, cultural, and industry shifts. Once upon a time, a singer would write a confessional song and get up on stage in a coffee house or in a small club in their nearest city and play night after night until they perfected the song with cues from the crowd. Musicians experimented and honed their style in front of a live audience. By the 1980s, that very personal method was rare and essentially no longer existed. The rise of home recording equipment and instruments made it possible for musicians to record demos at home without an audience or much collaboration. But the fall of the confessional songwriter is much deeper than that. Let's explore the key factors that contributed to this transition away from the singer-songwriter rock era. Joni Mitchell was playing throughout Canada and the U.S. when David Crosby discovered her in a Coconut Grove, Florida club, and she eventually traveled back to Laurel Canyon with him. Songs like Joni Mitchell's Both Sides Now, or James Taylor's Fire and Rain, and Carole King's It's Too Late are reflections on loss, healing, and the complexities of the human condition, taking the listener right into the singer's personal struggles that the listener can identify with.
I really don't know love.
Walked out on the morning and I wrote down this song.
It would be so fine to see your face at my door. It doesn't help to know.
And while some artists took a deep or melancholy approach to their songwriting, others went a different direction. Some musicians took a more lighthearted route, such as Jim Croce, Warren Zevon, and Harry Nilsson.
They're saying you don't tug on Superman's cape, you don't spit into the wind.
You know she drank 'em pulled up, she put the lime in the coconut, she called the doctor, woke him up and said, "Doctor."
As some of the counterculture moved away from the collective activism of the 1960s, a portion went towards the more personal, introspective space of the 1970s. The singer-songwriter movement provided the perfect soundtrack for a generation seeking to redefine themselves and their place in the world.
Baby, I'm amazed at the way you pulled me out of time. Hung me on.
Imagine there's no heaven.
Go to the arriving at the right time.
The wind can blow those clouds away.
Shit out, my mind can blow those clouds away. Looks like
Yeah, hope so.
a little bit of psychedelia in it, you know. Social comment
It
like
looks like it on the
a
table.
miner can blow these clouds away.
The mind can blow those clouds away.
The confessional style of the singer-songwriters that organically emerged in the early 1970s was deeply aligned with the ethos of the 1960s counterculture, which valued authenticity and personal freedom. As the 1970s began, a longing for natural simplicity evolved out of the violence of the times. Embracing nostalgia, the Back to the Land movement gained momentum, as many young people, especially within the counterculture, sought to return to simpler rural lifestyles. This movement idealized self-sufficiency, nature, and traditional values, which is reflected in the music and fashion. Pioneer dresses, with their modest cuts, natural fabrics, and earthy colors, fit this ethos perfectly, as did the stripped-down acoustic sound of the time. TV shows like Little House on the Prairie and The Waltons romanticized pioneer life and popularized the clothing styles of the time. This period of history was viewed through a nostalgic lens and became a way to embody a simpler, more innocent past. Disillusioned by failures of 1960s social movements to create large-scale change, they sought out alternative lifestyles from the suburban conformity they rejected from the 1950s. The idea of a return to the land was fueled by the desire for greater independence, self-reliance, and environmental sustainability. It was both a nostalgic look back at the pioneering past and a forward-thinking critique of industrial society's environmental and social shortcomings. After the complexities of the 1960s, there was an instinct for a return to a natural way of life. The solo singer with an acoustic guitar hit the spot. The stripped-down acoustic sound was a departure from the high-production studio albums that ruled the late 1960s, such as Sgt. Pepper and Pet Sounds. The return to nature fueled by the societal shifts created a roots movement in music. Neil Young's Heart of Gold, Cat Stevens' Wild World, and Bob Dylan's Shelter from the Storm provided a natural continuation of the 1960s mindset.
I wanna live, I wanna give. I
have a lot of nice things to wear, but then a lot of nice things turn bad out there.
One of toil and blood. When blackness was a virtue, the road was full of mud.
Singers like Jackson Browne, John Denver, and Gordon Lightfoot captured the spirit of the time in their music by writing deeply personal songs that explored emotional vulnerability and a nostalgic look at the past. Their music made the singer accessible, allowing audiences to connect with their own emotions and experiences on a deeper level. This transparency appealed to listeners who were rejecting the perceived artificiality of pop culture. Many of these artists focused on personal storytelling. Unlike the elaborate productions of mainstream rock bands or the fast-paced dance rhythms of pop music, singer-songwriters offered music that was honest and intimate. Jackson Browne's Running on Empty, John Denver's Country Roads, Gordon Lightfoot's Sundown, and Van Morrison's Into the Mystic resonated with a weary society.
69, I was 21, and I called the road my own. Well, I may go crazy.
Sundown, you better take care if I find you've been creeping round my back.
Tonight the people were so fine. They waited there in line.
Then there was a segment of singer-songwriters that took a more lighthearted approach to some of their songs. This provided a much-needed escape from the heaviness of the time.
Said it's really not my habit to intrude. Furthermore, I hope my meaning won't be lost on misconception.
Werewolves of London again.
You don't spit into the wind. You don't pull the mask off old Lone Ranger, and you don't mess around with Slim.
Jim Croce's breakthrough in 1972 with You Don't Mess Around with Jim provided a playfulness. His hit, Bad Bad Leroy Brown, reached #1 on the U.S. charts in the summer of 1973. On the night of September 20th, 1973, Jim and 5 others died during a plane crash in the fog in Louisiana. Jim's single, Time in a Bottle, reached #1 after he died.
Seems to be enough time to do the things you want to do once you find them.
Additionally, Randy Newman and Jimmy Buffett took a whimsical storytelling approach to their songs.
Dayton, Ohio, on a lazy Sunday afternoon, 1903. Smell those shrimp, they begin at a bar.
Then you had Neil Diamond, Rod Stewart, and Laura Nyro, who seemed to have their own unique style within the era.
I had nothing to do on this hot afternoon but to settle down and write you a line.
Picnic, there'll be lots of time and wine.
As the decade progressed, The media seized every opportunity to frame events in ways that fueled society's growing obsession with fear and bad news, fostering a cynical, negative mindset. True to expectations, crises followed. Oil shortages, political upheaval, and economic turmoil deepened the gloom. The rise of punk and disco in the mid to late 1970s marked a significant shift in the musical landscape, one that began to unravel the dominance of the singer-songwriter genre. By the latter half of the decade, musical trends began to move away from this intimate storytelling style. Both punk and disco emerged as powerful forces that offered contrasting responses to the cultural and social atmosphere, drawing attention away from the singer-songwriter movement and leading to its decline. Disco artists like Donna Summer and the Bee Gees created music that was designed for the dance floor, reflecting a shift towards a more escapist and hedonistic form of entertainment. Disco's polished production, repetitive beats, and emphasis on the nightlife through dancing stood in stark contrast to the introspective, acoustic-driven style of the singer-songwriters. As disco fever swept the nation, especially with the release of Saturday Night Fever in 1977, it captivated mainstream audiences and pushed the singer-songwriters with their quieter, more reflective music into the background. Punk rock, which developed around the same time, represented a completely different challenge to the singer-songwriter genre. While disco was an escape, characterized by its highly produced and polished sound, punk emerged as a raw, rebellious reaction to both the excesses of mainstream rock and the introspective nature of the singer-songwriters. Bands like the Sex Pistols, the Ramones, and the Clash rejected the careful, confessional songwriting style of the early 70s. Punk was loud, fast, and anti-establishment, and its ethos was energy and attitude over musicianship and lyrical introspection. The punk movement embraced confrontation and further marginalized the nuanced storytelling and emotional complexity found in the singer-songwriter tradition. Disco offered an escape from the political and economic turbulence of the 1970s, celebrating pleasure, freedom, and diversity within urban nightlife. Punk, on the other hand, reflected the anger and disillusionment of a younger generation fed up with the perceived stagnation of society and mainstream music. These two movements spoke to a growing desire for either escape or rebellion, while the inward-looking nature of the singer-songwriter genre no longer felt as urgent or relevant. As the 1980s approached, the 70s gave way to a more materialistic, image-driven culture, reflected in the rise of genres like new wave, glam rock, and pop music. The 1980s saw the increasing use of synthesizers and electronic instruments, which helped propel new wave and synth pop styles. Artists like Depeche Mode, Duran Duran, and others embraced a sound that was more technology-driven, which stood in stark contrast to the guitar-based, acoustic-driven singer-songwriter aesthetic. MTV's launch in 1981 revolutionized how music was consumed. Music videos became a major marketing tool, and the visual component became as important as the music itself.
Hit our executive producer, Sue Steinberg, over the head with a bottle of champagne, and behold, a new concept is born. The best of TV combined with the best of radio. Now, starting right now, you'll never look at music the same way again.
Artists who could produce visually captivating content, often from genres like pop and new wave, took center stage. Bands like Duran Duran became known not only for their catchy synth-driven pop songs, but also for their carefully crafted visual presentations, particularly through the medium of music videos. Songs like Hungry Like the Wolf combined infectious, high-energy beats with sleek production, capturing the upbeat, escapist ethos of the 1980s. This technological and thematic evolution reflected the changing cultural values of the 1980s, where innovation, image, and mass appeal became key components of success. In doing so, these artists dominated the 1980s, while also signaling the end of the singer-songwriter's dominance in mainstream music. The singer-songwriter rock genre not only shaped the sound of the era, but also influenced broader cultural values, championing personal freedom, emotional depth, and artistic integrity. While its mainstream dominance faded with the rise of new musical movements, its impact on popular music and its role in fostering a deeper connection between artists and listeners remains significant, and many new singers take this route in modern music.
They paved paradise, put up a parking lot.